Welcome to Beat the Press. I'm Emily Rooney. Our topics: Rolling Stone stumbles on the line between provocative and outrageous. Shocked by the George Zimmerman verdict, some say blame the media. Duped or dumb? How one station made a whopper of an error. Plus our panel's media rants and raves of the week. Joining me are Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University, WGBH's Kelly Crossley, Farrah Stockman of the Boston Globe, and John Keller of WBZ. First, New York-based Rolling Stone magazine created a firestorm this week after publishing a cover featuring a sweet-faced Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. But from most people's perspective, it ultimately led to some good. This is the cover of Rolling Stone that caused so much consternation. A flattering photograph of Boston Marathon bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev.
It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. They shouldn't glamorize that kind of stuff.
That about sums up the way most people reacted. Rolling Stone's first response was to tweet this: "I guess we should have drawn a dick on Dzhokhar's face or something." Nice. That tweet was later taken down, and the magazine then offered up this bromide. "Our hearts go out to the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, and our thoughts are always with them and their families." Sure they are. At any rate, turns out the article is well written and well researched, which calmed people down in some quarters, but not in law enforcement. Sometime yesterday afternoon, State Police photographer Sean Murphy sent out pictures of a bloodied and captive Dzhokhar Tsarnaev the night he surrendered in Watertown.
He was infuriated by the release of the Rolling Stone cover, felt it was disrespectful and an insult to law enforcement.
Boston Magazine was first to receive the photos, possibly because the magazine published this touching and classy graphic illustration on its May cover.
The state police sergeant who made these photographs public is off the job tonight.
Regardless, Sean Murphy is in trouble for releasing the photos without authorization, while Rolling Stone has neatly played into the hands of conspiracy theorists and love-struck teenagers who think Tsarnaev is innocent. But they can take heart. The magazine is now selling like hotcakes on eBay. You know, I have to say I heard about the controversy before I saw the photograph. And then when I saw the photograph, I thought, this can't be it. I mean, I've seen that photograph. It's his Facebook page, and it just struck me as, what's the issue? I know I was in the minority on that. And then I read the article, which I think it took a lot of people some time to get to it. It was really well done. I thought there was new information in there. There was detail. There was research I hadn't seen. So I thought this thing had really kind of died down. And the fact that this law enforcement guy was still so riled up, I mean, I have to say I get a big kick out of it. I wish there was more of this that went on. He may jeopardize his career for it. He releases these photographs, which I contend probably should have been released anyway. I'm hoping now that that coroner down in Florida releases the autopsy report on Tadashev about, so we'll know what he died of. I mean, this will maybe give him a little encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at the outcry over the cover as well. I thought it was a pretty effective cover, and the reason I thought it was effective was because it created a sense of cognitive dissonance. You see kind of the teen idol look of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, but then you forthrightly see the bomber and a monster. And you look at it and you know, well, this is who he was, or at least this is who his friends thought he was. And you just sort of think about his descent into terrorism after that. So in that respect, I thought it was an effective cover. Certainly no one should glamorize Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, but I don't think Rolling Stone was doing that. And the article was, as you say, it was quite good.
I think they were doing that. Come on. It's Rolling Stone, for one thing. And I don't start in about how they put Charles Manson on the cover once 30 years ago. The cover shot is the glam shot designed to, and the story was under their own heading of culture. Okay? The story itself, I was not quite as enthused with as both of you. It was a sort of a puffy personality piece. If you want to talk about Dzhokhar, how he romped with his younger brother when they were little kids, you don't need necessarily to say they romped like kittens. And there were a lot of little touches like that in the piece. Also absent from the piece any of the context that might have helped fuel that dissonance you described, Dan. No mention of the victims. no real input from people in the community who were especially outraged by what. There was one neighbor who weighed in a little bit. So I thought it was a mediocre job, and it was an insensitive approach, but, you know, hardly a hanging crime. I just think it fell into an environment where the wounds and the nerves are still very raw. That's all.
I really felt that it fell in the category of so many covers that have become controversial. And I want to say up front that I am loath to really put a kibosh on anybody's creativity, journalist creativity around covers and headlines and all of that. I get that. On the other hand, who is in the room when they are making these decisions? This is in the same category to me with the, you know, darkening of OJ's skin, with Sarah Palin on the cover with her shorts, and Newsweek's response was, well, that's the best shot we had of her. Really? You know, this is the same kind of thing. There is a way to create the cognitive dissonance that I think that the story gave with the cover. Someone has to be in the room to say, what are we trying to say here? What are we trying to get to? If we want to portray the glam, the innocence, is there a way to do that, but at the same time also make it clear that we understand the context of which he was in? And I really thought it was important here to do that. Again, that's their creative decision, but they have to take the heat when it comes down the other way as well.
Hey, their job is to sell magazines, and they created it's brilliant marketing. They created a controversy that is going to cause people to go out there and read that article that wouldn't have even known about it before. So I do think being on the cover of Rolling Stone is different than being on the cover of New York Times or something. It's just a different publication. There's something about making the cover of Rolling Stone that means you're a rock star. It means you're in the company of, you know, John Lennon and those folks. So, you know, I'm sure they knew they were going to be provocative. They were being provocative. And had he been an unattractive terrorist, I'm not sure he would have made the cover, right? Exactly, they didn't put the Columbine shooters on the cover. There's a lot of awkward, funny-looking killers out there that didn't make the cover. This guy made the cover for a reason. That picture looks like a Rolling Stone cover. Just not of a terrorist.
That snarky reply, though? That was the senior editor.
That was terrible. That was terrible.
And by the way, that was more genuine than the apology.
Yeah.
We're always in their thought. They are not. That's a lie.
That was awful.
They saw that picture and said, this belongs on the cover of the Rolling Stone.
I do want to express one reservation, along with my Northeastern colleague, Jack Levin. As effective as I thought the cover was, I do think there's some concern about putting this in front of a lot of other alienated kids who are having violent fantasies and who kind of see this and think, gee, maybe I ought to turn that fantasy into reality. And I think that's a legitimate concern.
I wish the story had explored that a little bit more, because there is kind of a jihadi chick among young people. There's something cool about terrorism, not just in the United States, but around the world. There's something about these self-radicalized, you know, kids. And I say kids because he was young. And I think that I wish the story had sort of brought that out a little bit more, because that would have made the cover more justified.
Real journalists would have cared about that, but we're talking about the editors of Rolling Stone.